The Bat Chat. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bat Chat. I am Captain Logan.
And I am Steve Baxi.
And today, Steve and I are going to do a commentary podcast on the Batman the Animated Series episode, Birds of a Feather. I know it's been a little while since we've done one of these for you. We actually had this particular episode recorded in the can, and we had a technical problem with the audio, and we weren't able to use it. So we're going to have to re-record that now, and hopefully this won't be a less interesting conversation because Steve swayed me a little bit on this one, and now you're not going to hear that happen because we both are somewhat in agreement on it now.
Yeah, that's kind of a shame, but it should still be fun because you still like it more than I do, even if we both agree that it's not very good.
Yeah, that's it. So this is another Penguin episode. A lot of people think that there aren't a lot of great Penguin episodes in the show, and I think, if memory serves, Steve, you told me that you just don't really care for this version of that character in the first place.
Yeah, I don't really care for this version, and as far as animated series and the Batman are concerned, they use the Penguin either too much or too obnoxiously, so it's just difficult to enjoy him when he is good.
Yeah, fair enough. And the Penguin's one of those characters that is like huge in Batman's rogues gallery, but then when you talk to people about their favorite characters or their favorite villains, he doesn't come up on a lot of people's lists.
He doesn't, and if you want to try and find good stories, you can probably count all of them from 75 years in one hand.
I mean, it's probably true that there are just stories I've never read and wouldn't know if they were good or not, but that might not be true for Steve Baxi, who has an encyclopedic catalog of Batman stories in his brain. So if you'd like to watch this episode with us, be sure to rig up your DVDs or your Amazon Prime. It is, according to Amazon Prime, Season 2, Episode 19. This is on the second volume of Batman the Animated Series, and make sure to get it to timestamp 0. We, as always, will do our level best to provide some context, so you can listen to this even without watching the episode, but these especially are more fun to watch the episode with us as we're reacting to it and talking about it. Steve, are you ready, sir?
I'm all set.
Let's get right into it. Everybody, please press play right now.
So Amazon changed their player, and it's kind of awkward now because I'm used to having like big, more tangible buttons instead of things that fade away.
Oh.
It's very weird.
I guess it is different, and I just hadn't really noticed that, but you're right.
Yeah, it's very. I just don't use Amazon Prime Video very often, so I'm not used to it when it changes. I hate different. Stop being different.
I don't like it when things are different. Steve's a regular Plinkett. He just doesn't like it when things are different. This is... Yeah, Amazon Prime is one of those things that I have more for the shipping, perks than I do for anything.
Me too, yeah.
But there are a few things that come up here and there where I'm really glad that I have it for video. Where it's kind of my, third wheel. But every now and again, I need that wheel, Steve.
Yeah, that's fair. I think they just got the first season of Mr. Robot, so that'll be nice. I can go back and watch that again.
Oh, and you keep telling me to watch that, so...
It's really good. So I like the title card for this episode, even though I think the reference it's making to the opera and stuff just doesn't work within the context of the story. I think the art style and stuff is nice.
I'm going to have to get myself back into this episode because it's now been a couple weeks since I've seen it. Oh, look, he's got a painting of ducks!
Doesn't he just love everything with birds? It's great. And look, all those other big, more fancy paintings. He's going to take the one with the ducks.
Well, of course he is, because this is a more sophisticated version of the Batman Returns Penguin, and he's got this thing for ducks.
I kind of wish we had a big climax in the show with Penguin where he's just riding around mechanical ducks.
Doesn't he actually use the mechanical duck somewhere?
I don't think he does.
Show? I'm almost positive it pops up.
It may have been in his first appearance, but I don't remember, at least not in this episode.
No, it's not in this episode, I don't think. It'd be really funny if something wasn't. It's like, wow, I really should have rewatched this.
So this is one of the many, many, many villain reform episodes.
Yeah, trying to go straight.
Yeah, there's a couple more of those coming up. There's a Riddler one coming up pretty soon, too. And we said this in the previous commentary, and I think I said this one at the end of the previous episode we did, but this is basically the Penguin's version of Mask of the Phantasm. when you get to the girl he likes and a lot of what we're trying to do, paralleling what the Penguin is versus what he wants to be and all that.
And where ultimately, just like Batman, he ends up taking the tragic road that he's been on the whole time, except he's a bad guy, so it's even more tragic.
Yeah, exactly.
Although it's different in that, because you made that analogy, and I never would have thought of that. And of course, where that breaks down is the girl that he quote unquote could have been with, he really couldn't have been with.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that's part of my problem with the episode is just that Penguin never really gets a chance to have a character arc. Like, it's all very manufactured by the end, and everyone's just kind of a jerk to him most of the way through this episode. So it's as if he was in an impossible catch-22 situation where we never even really tested the waters of what would it be like if Penguin was a good person.
Yeah, what kind of drew me to this episode in the first place was this idea that and it does break down, but this idea that the Penguin sees himself as being really high society, and this kind of POV thing where I never had any reason to question it up to this point. Where he kind of maybe at some point was from that world or fakes it really well, and then once he tries to mingle with high society and be a part of that world, he doesn't fit in at all, and so he's a complete outcast. And he's an outcast in every kind of world except for the criminal underworld, where
Right.
he's where the sophistication that he does bring to it, and that intelligence, and really I think just this kind of attitude of this kind of snotty attitude of I'm better than everyone and I speak with a lot of big words, he's able to get farther than maybe he could otherwise.
Yeah, and this show doesn't do a lot with Penguin's origin, but that would have helped kind of develop where he's coming from with this, because I like the
Yeah.
idea that Penguin doesn't actually belong in high society and he's been faking it the whole time. I think that's interesting. But part of the problem is just we don't do enough with him having a reason to change, with him having a reason to want to be in high society, or doing anything with people that he likes to mingle with that are inherently like him or different than him. Like, Penguin could very easily go either way. He could be a criticism of high society, or he could be some sort of like, this is all the potential you have, like if, like, say you're Bruce Wayne. And we never follow through with any of that. We don't really pick any one direction and run with the analogy. We just kind of throw it on and act like it's working just fine.
Well, I forgot about this, but I guess the idea is that even the criminals spurn him too.
Yeah, basically everyone does. And again, it's like he's never given a fair shot.
And I'm not sure that this isn't somewhat of a reinvention of the character. From what he's been before this, or at least there's ideas in this that I never really gleaned from it until you get to this point. But it doesn't feel like a character building or a character revealing episode so much as we didn't have a handle on it, so here's what we've decided it is. And we have that with a lot of villains in the show, but it's a little late.
Yeah, with Penguin though, it's a lot of what we do in this episode has been there in the comics for a while.
Oh, in the comics, I'm just saying in the show.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
I'm comparing it exclusively to itself.
Yeah. I mean, Penguin was nothing like this when we first met him with I've got Batman in my basement.
Well, and maybe we didn't know that much about him, but I'm just suggesting that I never really got the sense that he saw himself as a bigger deal than he was.
Right.
Like,
yeah, no, that's
everywhere,
understandable.
even in the criminal underworld. So these high society bozos that have this like regular thing or I guess it's not regular, but this thing that is becoming maybe a regular thing they want to do, where they bring in a criminal in order to be the fun at a party. They use, it's such a weird idea. We'll use criminals to be the entertainment at a party. This is another one of those episodes where the show is having a hard time deciding what kind of a show it wants to be.
Yeah.
Episode where if this is just because it's supposed to be a character piece for the Penguin, but this idea that before the Penguin they used the Joker, that's just like psychotic and messed up.
There is an interesting through line between the show that I don't think Bruce Timm or Paul Dini ever really talk about or even were really conscious of maybe Gotham City being as crazy as its villains and its
Yeah.
heroes. Because when you go back and you look at like the episode where someone bases a casino on Joker,
Right.
and then some of the stuff we get with like Hugo Strange and Tiger, and it seems like this is a universe that's designed for supervillain takeover, or it's gotten to this point where everyone's become so bad it's a wonder that Batman can save anyone at all. And I think that's an idea that they bring up a bit more when we get to I Am the Night.
That's true, and I was thinking about that while you were mentioning that with the way that that Batman becomes commercialized.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know that it's so much people becoming as bad as the villains as it is people being like too used to them, just desensitized to them. Just it's part of the normal everyday. Like, and maybe that's the same thing. Maybe that does make them bad. But I also get the vibe from an episode like this that these people just aren't as bad as they are in other episodes.
Yeah, that's true. It's like you said, the show has a very tough time trying to figure out what it wants to be sometimes, and I think particularly with its villains, because it's as strong as this show is, I do really think it has one of the weakest adaptations of Batman's Rogues Gallery, where Jokers kind of stand out, and more people like the Clayface episode than we do.
Well,
but,
and I still like it a lot more than you do, but
yeah, that's fair. But I think on the whole, it's not very good at differentiating these characters or giving them any sort of like this is their new universal identity. Because even Mr. Freeze's Heart of Ice episode breaks down when you incorporate it into the comics.
yeah, I mean, with looking at it in just this universe, I don't know why the comics matter, but
No, I'm just saying like this is a show. I think this is one of the weak points of the show is that it's not very good with its villains.
I mean, it's maybe not. It's maybe somewhat disingenuous to say that it's a show that can't decide what it wants to be. This is a point we've made before, where it's just a matter of they want to have their cake and eat it too a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Where like some episodes are more kids episodes, and other episodes are for everybody, and kids can watch them. But there are a lot of scary implications of villains. This is an episode that I feel like looks really boring if you're a kid.
Yeah, I think so too. There are some funny moments here and there, but on the whole, it's kind of dull.
And should be a character study, and it unfortunately is not as interesting as I was thinking it was as I was watching it. By the time you get to the end, I think it kind of falls apart. It's an episode I didn't remember from when I was a kid.
Yeah, I don't remember very much of it either. This is one I went back to when I was older. And then also, it's an episode that thinks it's smarter than it actually is in certain places.
Yeah.
So it doesn't realize it's being boring. The Penguin here, I don't really buy his turn. That's one of my biggest problems with this episode is just I don't understand why this is the occasion where he decides he's going to try and turn over a new leaf. And even when he does, he's kind of annoying about it, and Batman is kind of annoying about it. They're both just, it seems like both of them know exactly where this episode's plot is going, and they're just doing this to get on each other's nerves.
Yeah, like I said, when I was watching this a couple weeks ago and didn't remember it, I may have seen this and I just didn't remember. I was enjoying this idea of his falling for this lady and trying to be in high society and that not really working out for him. And I found him somewhat sympathetic. But then I was asking that question that you were talking about of why now?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's an attempt at making it that he's just fed up. Right at the beginning, where he says, over and over again, I get beaten by Batman, and it seems like he's like, here's an idea. How about this time I just don't continue with the crime thing?
I think part of the problem with that is just Penguin's only had a few episodes, so him being fed up with Batman just feels odd to me. Like he's got cameos in a couple of episodes. He's like in a hallucination in a couple episodes. And his big entrance was I've got Batman in my basement. I don't think there's enough history within this universe for me to buy the character has gotten that far.
So this is the scene where the episode starts to lose me a little bit when the Penguin starts pretending to sing in Pagliacci, and I'm like,
Yeah.
who would let him do that? How has he not been thrown out by now? And like from here on, we start to see all these places where he's actually kind of gross and obscene, and at least for this show.
Yeah.
Or at least he's supposed to kind of come off that way, and where he sees himself as something that he's not, and he has these delusions of grandeur. I didn't realize that's where we were going until that moment.
Yeah, and at that point we're like halfway through the episode, so it's just
like, I get that he's been had and that he's not being taken seriously, but at first, and I'm not saying that by the way, that woman wearing that dress looks like she just came out of prison with the Penguin. I don't know why you would wear that to a cocktail party, but she totally.
Good question.
Like, I'm sorry, but the black and gray pinstripes are not the new black. It's not working. But I can't help but wonder. Excuse me. While I was watching this, I thought it was the idea was just that he was being had, and that they didn't take him seriously because he was a criminal, but not that he was as just sad and pathetic as he's supposed to be, apparently.
Yeah. And again, some of that just goes with, I think they're just playing him wrong. I feel like he's acting too sneaky and conniving when he should be more either humbled or off put by how easily he was able to get in. Like, a lot of this just feels like it's a weird blink and you miss it turn. Like, just a second ago, he was Batman Returns-y, and then here, for a second, he's very innocent, and then right away we turn again, and he's mad at this woman. Like, we're not giving him any time to breathe in any of his emotional states.
Yeah, and I still need to know where it comes from. It would, like you said earlier, and I don't mean to be repetitious, but it would be really nice to know what his upbringing was like, what his parents were like. Maybe he was in a more high-class home and lived that kind of life when he was younger, and he's out of touch now.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was cast out from it like he is in Batman Returns.
You talk a lot about when we do like superhero rewinds and stuff. You mention a lot like origin stories can be good. There just has to be a story there. I feel like Penguin's one of the few Batman villains that has a story in his origin, and we very rarely explore it.
I also feel like it's ironically one of those that is vital.
Yeah,
that you
absolutely
need to know what it is, or at least when you play him like that, and when you do the outcast trying to get into, because that's a really extreme kind of world to try to get into when you're crawling up from the bottom.
Yeah, there has to be something that sets him on that path.
Why does he want that so bad?
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre that we don't do at least a little bit more with that. I don't remember who wrote this episode, but I feel like this might have been something to give to Paul Dini so he could craft something more from the ground up with this character.
I really wanted at the end of the Pagliacci scene for somebody to say, good joke. Roll on snare drum. Everybody laugh.
By the end of this, I think the episode just kind of turns into the Saturday morning cartoon it's intended to be. Like, we're about to get to like some pretty preposterous scenes.
As I often say, I don't want to be. Okay, where's Catwoman? That had to be her cat. That looks like a cat Catwoman owns. I don't. Oh, Englehart is one of the cross streets.
And Mike Barr.
So I don't want to be that guy that says one of the only really good things about this episode is the score, and of course, again, it got me until the middle, the first time I watched it, but but I've always liked Shirley Walker's score for the Penguin, and I kind of feel like she doesn't use it as often in his episodes as she does the other Rogues scores.
Yeah.
Like sometimes his theme doesn't seem to come up as much.
Yeah. I can't even remember off the top of my head like what it sounds like in other instances.
Well, in Almost Got Him, I don't think it comes up at all in his section.
No, it doesn't.
I might be wrong about that, but we just did that recently, and I thought that was a note I made where I was like, that's weird. I don't think the big bombastic march that he has, the bum 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 bum. I really like that, and I think see, there's the duck. I told you the duck was here.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Or at least I knew it was in the show, and then I was thinking maybe it was here, but then you were like, no, it's not this episode, and I figured you knew better than me because you know the show better than me. Because remember last time we tried to do this, I was talking about how hilarious the scowl on the duck is.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's a very angry duck.
I told you, and see, that means the painting was foreshadowing.
It's
there should be two of them.
brilliant.
And of course, this hideout is really elaborate and over the top.
Yep, and he just had it at the ready.
Yeah, which is weird because he was, earlier showed up to that place that he expected all of his friends to be, and nobody was there.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre.
So it's possible he murdered everyone in this building.
I guess that's a good way to make Penguin kind of dark and twisted, like a Scott Snyder's Mr. Freeze, who just randomly kills people.
Well, that's the thing, is that this is a confused episode in its tone, as we've been saying, where it is in places trying to be atmospheric and a little bit creepy, and I don't think it's quite working.
The scene where this guy is trying to find Penguin walking with the briefcase is for sure trying to be a much darker, almost laughing fish kind of thing. Yeah. And then here it's just preposterous, over the top cartoony. And then at the beginning when Penguin's being captured and trying to figure out what to do with himself, it's more quirky. So yeah, it's not really sure of where it wants to go or what it wants to be.
And this situation is very nostra preposterous.
It is very nostra preposterous. It's almost exactly like that scene because there was the flying chandelier.
So we talked over this, but Batman is hilarious his Batarang is just a Adam West Batarang.
They changed Batarang designs a lot.
Did you see that? It's got the hole in the back where you'd put the rope in it. but yeah, we talked over it, but Batman is hilarious for having a tracking device that he just puts in a wad of bills. He's got this giant tracking device relatively, and he's going through what is this? Clunk! There's not some other way to track the bills?
I guess not. I mean, he can just follow the guy, I guess.
And so I guess the idea here is supposed to be Penguin having this, like, kind of wish fulfillment fantasy where now, like, he's the hero, of the opera, and, like, the whole world is against him. And, I wish I still felt as sympathetic toward him as I kind of did at the beginning. But I think part of the problem is that maybe the situation he got himself into, it was just too obvious and he should have known better. But then I don't know enough about that character, again, to be sure that he wouldn't be as detached as he is. So I don't know, I'm too separated from it. I also think that more of the episode should be from his perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I think we focus a little bit too much on Batman in this one. And then also just the woman. I feel like the girl that's pulling him into this, I don't think is as important as his reaction to it. Yeah,
and that's a problem. They try to make her a little bit more complex at the end, where she feels bad for the whole thing, but that's really superficial 60s Batman kind of, I just realized because I got caught that I did a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it feels very artificial. I think by the end of this, just maybe a little bit contrary to what you mentioned with him flying around on the dragon, I think it's supposed to be a little bit more of just he's kind of embracing that he's going to be the bad guy, and I think part of the idea might have been that Batman drives him to this, that maybe Batman's intent to help is just as perpetuating as everything else in Gotham, but I don't think it discusses any of that.
Yeah, I have a hard time even reading it that far because of that. Yeah, I guess I said hero just because he's wearing the Viking hat and he's taming the dragon.
I always read it more as just, I guess maybe just more vaguely as dragon's bad, knight's good, Batman's the Dark Knight, Penguin's on a dragon, and knights slay dragon.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I think both are valid mostly because the episode is just so vague.
Yeah, maybe there's no reason to read it at all. So, sometimes.
Sometimes a tree is just a tree, or in this case, a penguin on a dragon with a Viking hat is just a penguin on a dragon with a Viking hat.
Yeah, and sometimes a Saturday morning cartoon trying to be more than it is.
Yes,
Is
exactly.
just that. I mean, forgive me for not doing more analysis than I'm doing, but like, I'm a little bit bummed because it wasn't as interesting as I thought it was the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think we mentioned this in the first commentary where I feel like this episode might have been better as a two-parter.
Yeah, perhaps so. You just because the thing is, you want any way you slice it, what you want is to really want the penguin to win. You
Right.
want the penguin to go straight and to be able for that to work out. And it's not going to happen, but you want to feel bad for him and you want it to be gut wrenching when it doesn't, and it all happens too fast and it's too easy and it's not a real compelling situation. So I don't feel that way, even though I thought I felt something for him the first few minutes.
Yeah, a lot of it is just kind of bare bones, and I feel like there's some really interesting potential in this episode that just never gets picked up on.
And as you said earlier, I think a lot of it you can boil down to the Penguin's not a character they had a good handle on.
Yeah,
So just what do we do with this guy?
and they are kind of
it's not
limited by the movie.
Yeah, and to their credit, it's kind of an ambitious idea to try to merge those two things.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely had some interesting, probably discussions about what they wanted this episode to be. But they never quite like figured out how to make that work.
It's funny because you compared it to the Batman version earlier, and this one is like three parts the comic book like intelligent penguin, and one part the Batman Returns version, and mostly just in the look.
Yeah, yeah,
And then that is switched in the Batman.
yeah, yeah.
That's
It is.
flipped completely.
The Batman Penguin's really bizarre, but I still find him kind of
And
entertaining.
he has a mouth that wraps almost entirely around his head.
He's also got two ninjas at his side at all times.
But yeah, he's clearly supposed to be the Danny DeVito penguin.
Yes, he's great.
Well, anyway, that's going to be it for us today. Everybody, thanks as always for listening to Bat Chat. And we'll be with you again next week for another one. We're going to talk about the second Riddler episode, What is Reality? And Steve, we'll try to answer that wonderfully impossible to answer question. What is reality?
We will sit there for 20 minutes having a philosophical discussion about
That's right. It'll be 20 minutes of metaphysics and John Glover.
it. That sounds perfect.
That sounds like a winning title for a book.
It does. It does. That sounds like John Glover's biography.
Metaphysics and John Glover. And like you can only use that vocal inflection whenever you talk about it. Metaphysics and John Glover. Well, anyway, everybody, thanks again for listening, and leave us your comments. Tell us what you think of this episode. And in the meantime, I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Steve Baxey.
And we'll see you again next time.